Story, we talk about a rising African leader making waves both on the ground and online. Known for his charisma, military fatigues, and fiery anti-Western stance, he is not your typical head of state. He is Burkina Faso's military leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré.
Burkina Faso just shocked Africa. A futuristic city named after its sitting president has broken ground. A city with Africa's tallest tower, its power grid, and a $523 million price tag. But why would a nation at war build something like this? What does it mean for Burkina Faso and all of Africa? Let's find out. On a warm June morning in Ouagadougou, construction vehicles roared to life in the Waga 2000 district as President Ibrahim Traoré placed his hand on the foundation stone of what is already being called Burkina Faso's most ambitious project ever. In that single moment, the country's narrative shifted from one struggling to survive to one daring to redefine itself. The announcement stunned even Traoré's supporters, who had grown accustomed to his assertive policies and fiery speeches. Yet, a city named after a sitting leader, designed to rival some of Africa's most advanced urban hubs, was something entirely unexpected. The project, officially titled Ibrahim Traoré City, is being hailed as a game-changer. It is not just another urban expansion, but a meticulously planned smart city, complete with a 35-story Burkindi tower set to become the tallest structure in the region, alongside 15 modern high-rises, hundreds of apartments, offices, a sprawling shopping complex, advanced health facilities, and leisure spaces designed for a new era of Burkinabe life. What makes it even more groundbreaking is its commitment to self-sufficiency. The city will run on an independent energy grid, freeing it from the rolling blackouts and external dependency that have plagued the nation for decades. The financing details add to the intrigue. Backed by a 320 billion CFA francs investment, this isn't an aid-funded project dictated by foreign interests. According to government insiders, local contractors, regional partners, and select African investors are behind the funding structure, making it one of the first major infrastructure developments in Burkina Faso to rely primarily on homegrown and Pan-African capital rather than Western loans or conditional assistance. In the president's own words at the groundbreaking, the city is meant to demonstrate that African nations can dream big, fund big, and own their future without compromise. Reactions to the announcement have been dramatic. Supporters flooded social media with messages calling the project a historic shift and proof that Burkina Faso is more than its security headlines. Youth groups have expressed pride at the idea of a modern city designed to create jobs, housing, and a new commercial hub capable of attracting African and international investors. For many young Burkinabe, the city represents hope, a tangible signal that their country is not only focused on combating insurgents, but also building a future beyond conflict. However, skeptics have raised concerns. Critics point to the ongoing security crisis and question whether resources should be directed toward urban mega-projects while parts of the country remain destabilized by insurgent violence. Others question the optics of naming such a development after a sitting president, warning that it could spark political debate or even alienate some citizens who see it as premature. Economists, however, counter that strategic infrastructure like this often becomes the backbone of post-crisis recovery, creating jobs, attracting foreign direct investment, and establishing long-term economic confidence. What's clear is that Ibrahim Traoré City is not just another infrastructure project, it is a symbolic declaration of independence. By prioritizing local ownership and bypassing traditional Western financiers, the initiative marks a visible break from the dependency model that has long dominated West African development. It also underscores Traoré's Pan-Africanist message: Africa can build for itself, on its terms. Whether this project becomes a shining success or faces the weight of its ambition remains to be seen. But for now, Burkina Faso is no longer just reacting to crises. It is actively reshaping its future, and the world is taking notice. Let's pause for a second to say, big thank you to the Black Culture Diary community, where Black voices, stories, and legacies are preserved and amplified. By becoming a member, you're not just supporting the channel, you're becoming part of a powerful cultural movement. Let's continue. Now the question is why the city is named after Traoré. To understand why a city named after a sitting president is shaking up not just Burkina Faso but much of Africa, one must first understand the man at the center of it all, Ibrahim Traoré. His rise to power was not the product of long political grooming or elite party maneuvering. Instead, it was the sudden eruption of a new kind of leadership forged in conflict, frustration, and the desire for change. Born in 1988, Traoré grew up in the Haute-Bassin region of Burkina Faso, far from the polished corridors of political power in Ouagadougou. His early years were defined by a country constantly battling the economic and political hangovers of post-colonial dependency. Joining the military as a young man, Traoré excelled as an artillery officer and developed a reputation for discipline, courage, and an unusually direct way of speaking. His colleagues often described him as someone who didn't do politics but believed in results. The Burkina Faso he served, however, was unraveling. Insurgent groups were spreading across the Sahel, displacing tens of thousands, paralyzing agriculture, and shaking public trust in government. In October 2022, when Traoré led a coup that deposed then-President Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, it was not framed as an act of ambition, but as a last resort. His message was simple. Burkina Faso could no longer afford leaders who promised security, but delivered paralysis. Yet what happened next surprised even those who supported the coup. Instead of ruling as a distant military figure, Traoré quickly became known for his public accessibility and grassroots appeal. He made a point of visiting markets, military outposts, and rural farming cooperatives, talking not just about security, but about economic dignity and national pride. He avoided the luxury trappings associated with many African heads of state, often appearing in simple military fatigues, which for many symbolized solidarity rather than superiority. But Traoré's significance goes beyond optics. His ideological stance, boldly anti-imperialist and unapologetically Pan-African, has positioned him as a voice for a continent tired of being treated as a resource mine for others. He reduced reliance on French military presence and economic contracts, pivoting instead to cooperation with countries like Russia and non-Western partners willing to work without the baggage of conditional aid. His speeches regularly reference African history and emphasize sovereignty as the foundation of development. This has resonated deeply beyond Burkina Faso. In Mali, Niger, and even as far away as Senegal and Ghana, his name is now invoked at rallies demanding African-led solutions to African problems. Pan-African youth groups have adopted his image as a symbol of generational change, often portraying him alongside liberation-era icons like Thomas Sankara and Kwame Nkrumah. Social media platforms are flooded with posts hailing him as an African lion, a figure willing to risk political backlash for bold choices, including the one that birthed Ibrahim Traoré City. However, Traoré's growing influence is not without controversy. Critics worry about the long-term implications of consolidating so much power in the hands of one leader and question whether his confrontational stance toward traditional Western allies could isolate Burkina Faso. Others point to the naming of a massive urban development after him as a sign of potential cult of personality politics. Yet even his detractors admit that he has tapped into something real, a widespread hunger for a leadership style that feels authentic, courageous, and future-oriented. In short, Ibrahim Traoré matters because he represents a new archetype of African leadership. Young, militarily disciplined, ideologically bold, and unafraid to disrupt old power structures. For some, he is the rebirth of revolutionary ambition. For others, he is a risky experiment. But for most Burkinabe, he is the first leader in years to give them something more than just speeches. He has given them a tangible vision of what their future could look like. Ibrahim Traoré City is not just a collection of high-rise buildings. It is an ideological blueprint disguised as urban development, a city designed to embody sovereignty, resilience, and modern African identity. At its core, the city is meant to operate independently of external vulnerabilities that often cripple other West African capitals. One of the project's most revolutionary elements is its self-sustaining energy system. The development includes plans for solar farms, backup battery grids, and even small-scale energy storage technologies that will keep the city running even if Burkina Faso's national grid falters. In a region where power outages are still common, this is a deliberate step toward energy independence, a theme consistent with Traoré's broader policy of self-reliance. Equally significant is the urban layout. Unlike Ouagadougou's crowded core, where housing shortages and informal settlements are common, this new city is being meticulously planned with 700 modern apartments that integrate eco-friendly architecture, water recycling systems, and green corridors intended to reduce urban heat. The roads are designed to accommodate future electric bus routes, cycle tracks, and pedestrian-friendly zones, reflecting a long-term vision of sustainable mobility rather than the car-dependent sprawl that plagues so many fast-growing African cities. At the economic heart of the city is the Burkina Business Center, which will feature 2,000 office spaces and an innovation district targeting fintech, agriculture tech, logistics, and small-scale manufacturing startups. This is no accident. Traoré's administration has repeatedly stressed that Burkina Faso cannot rely solely on raw material exports if it wants to become a resilient economy. By creating a commercial hub with tax incentives for local startups and Pan-African investors, the city aims to incubate homegrown businesses capable of competing on a continental scale. The cultural and social components of the project are equally ambitious. Plans include a performing arts complex, community centers, libraries, and multi-purpose leisure spaces. Rather than simply being a residential commercial zone, Ibrahim Traoré City is envisioned as a complete lifestyle ecosystem, one that fosters education, culture, and community cohesion, while also providing healthcare access through a state-of-the-art medical center designed to reduce dependence on overseas medical trips. The symbolic elements of the design cannot be overlooked either. The 35-story Burkina Tower, set to be the tallest building in the region, is intended not just as an office tower, but as an icon of aspiration, visibly declaring to anyone who sees Ouagadougou's skyline that Burkina Faso is no longer content to be in the shadow of others. Its architectural design draws inspiration from traditional Burkinabe motifs, blending modern materials with cultural aesthetics as a statement of pride in indigenous identity. Even the construction strategy is unconventional. Unlike many African mega-projects dominated by foreign firms, Traoré has emphasized the use of local contractors, engineers, and skilled labor wherever possible, with training programs being implemented to prepare young Burkinabe workers for high-tech construction roles. This means that, beyond its physical buildings, the city is intended to leave behind a skilled workforce capable of replicating similar developments in the future. The timeline is aggressive. Early infrastructure work, such as power lines, road networks, and water systems, began almost immediately after the groundbreaking. The government has hinted at completing key residential and business blocks within 5 years, an ambitious pace that reflects both confidence and urgency. In essence, Ibrahim Traoré City is not being built simply to house people. It is being built to house an idea that Africa can design, fund, and execute urban development projects for itself without waiting for permission or direction from former colonial powers or global financial institutions. It is a physical manifestation of a new kind of sovereignty, one rooted not just in politics, but in architecture, technology, and the lived experience of everyday citizens. But no matter how visionary Ibrahim Traoré City appears on paper, its success depends on navigating some of Burkina Faso's harshest realities. While the project itself stands as a symbol of ambition and independence, the country continues to face an environment defined by security crises, economic pressures, and high public expectations that could make or break the entire initiative. The most immediate challenge is security. Burkina Faso remains one of the country's hardest hit by insurgencies. Large parts of the northern and eastern regions remain vulnerable to attacks, and thousands of citizens have been displaced, creating both humanitarian and social tensions. Though Ibrahim Traoré City is positioned in Ouagadougou, a comparatively secure zone, it cannot be completely insulated from the national security picture. Critics argue that a futuristic city may have little value if large portions of the population remain outside the reach of basic stability. President Traoré's administration has responded by restructuring the military and creating community-based security programs aimed at building trust and improving intelligence gathering in affected regions. However, these are long-term solutions. and their effectiveness will likely be judged in the same time frame as the city's construction. There is a question quietly circulating among analysts. Can a country simultaneously fight an asymmetric war and build one of Africa's most advanced cities without overstretching itself? The second major challenge is economic balance. While the official budget for the city is pegged at 320 billion CFA francs, questions linger about opportunity cost. Some economists warn that such a large investment concentrated in one district could unintentionally widen economic disparities between urban and rural areas, if not matched by parallel development in agriculture, infrastructure, and job creation in other regions. Rural communities, which form the backbone of Burkina Faso's food supply and cultural identity, may perceive the project as distant from their daily struggles. That said, there are signs of an effort to mitigate this. The city is being promoted not just as a luxury urban enclave, but as an economic engine meant to attract regional investment and create jobs that ripple outward across the economy. If successfully managed, it could shift Burkina Faso's reputation from one of aid dependency to one of innovation and growth. But failure to deliver on employment promises or accessible housing could quickly turn optimism into resentment. The third challenge lies in public expectations. The naming of the city after a sitting president has intensified scrutiny, particularly among political opponents who frame it as a potential slide toward cult of personality politics. Many citizens support Traoré's vision, but are wary of symbolism overtaking substance. For them, the project must deliver tangible improvements, affordable housing, accessible healthcare, secure jobs, not just striking skylines. International dynamics also add complexity. Traoré's deliberate shift away from traditional Western alliances and toward non-Western partners has drawn applause from Pan-African groups, but raised eyebrows among Western institutions. This could impact access to certain forms of financing or technical expertise, forcing Burkina Faso to rely more heavily on internal and regional resources. While this aligns with Traoré's sovereignty agenda, it also narrows the margin for error. Despite these obstacles, there is a growing belief among supporters that doing nothing is no longer an option. For decades, Burkina Faso has been defined by poverty statistics and conflict headlines. Now, there is an opportunity to flip that narrative. Ibrahim Traoré's city is in many ways a national gamble, one where success could inspire similar initiatives across Africa, and failure could deepen skepticism about ambitious projects in fragile states. The stakes are clear. This is not just about constructing buildings. It is about proving that Burkina Faso can rebuild its image, its economy, and its confidence even while facing extraordinary pressures. Whether that vision can hold under the weight of security threats, financial strain, and public scrutiny is the question that will determine how history remembers both the project and its namesake leader. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. The emergence of Ibrahim Traoré City has already transcended its physical form. Even before a single tower has reached its full height, the project has entered the public imagination as a symbol of possibility, a concept rare in a country often framed in headlines for insurgency and instability. But beyond steel and concrete, what does this city symbolize for Burkina Faso's future? First, it represents a redefinition of identity. For decades, Burkina Faso was primarily known internationally for its agricultural economy, and more recently, its security crises. Now, with the announcement of a technologically advanced, self-sufficient urban hub, the narrative is shifting from one of survival to one of innovation. Instead of being seen as a nation on the periphery of global development, Burkina Faso is positioning itself as a bold actor, capable of shaping its destiny. This shift matters because perception often drives investment, and early signals suggest that regional entrepreneurs and international partners are already expressing interest in participating in the project's innovation clusters and commercial zones. Second, the city is a statement about generational change. Traoré, being among the youngest leaders in Africa, embodies a broader demographic reality. Most of Africa's population is under 30. The design and purpose of Ibrahim Traoré City align with that demographic by focusing on modern jobs, technology-driven industries, and sustainable urban living. If successful, It could serve as a model for youth-led transformation, countering the narrative that Africa's young leaders are either inexperienced or short-sighted. Instead, it would showcase that youth-driven leadership can produce forward-looking solutions that benefit future generations rather than merely managing the present. Third, the symbolism extends to political independence. By choosing to emphasize local ownership and regional partnerships rather than leaning on traditional Western donors, Traoré is signaling a pivot in how development is approached. The city is an architectural version of his broader political stance. Burkina Faso will define its path, even if it breaks with old alliances or challenges entrenched global interests. That symbolism resonates across Africa, especially in neighboring Sahelian states, where debates over sovereignty, resource control, and Western military presence dominate national discourse. However, symbolism is a double-edged sword. By naming the city after himself, Traoré has invited inevitable comparisons to leaders who built monuments in their honor. Supporters see it as a necessary morale boost for a nation that needs confidence, while critics warn it could become a political vulnerability if the city fails to meet its ambitious goals. In this sense, the city is also a personal test for Traoré's legacy, a living referendum on whether his vision of sovereignty and development can withstand economic, political, and social pressures. Looking ahead, if Ibrahim Traoré's city succeeds, it could change how African nations approach urban planning. It may spark a shift toward eco-smart, energy-independent developments that reduce reliance on outdated colonial-era infrastructure models. It could inspire other governments to invest in cities as centers of innovation rather than simply administrative hubs. Moreover, it may empower African leaders to rethink development financing, focusing more on internal resources and Pan-African collaborations rather than waiting for foreign approval or conditional loans. But perhaps the most important future impact is psychological. For ordinary Burkinabe, seeing cranes rise and foundations being laid offers something intangible yet powerful. Belief. Belief that their country can do more than endure. The belief that resilience can be turned into progress. And the belief that leadership can move beyond speeches and manifest into tangible achievements. In that sense, Ibrahim Traoré's city is more than a building project. It is a mirror of Burkina Faso's ambitions and a litmus test for what Pan-Africanist leadership can achieve when matched with decisive action. The future of Burkina Faso will depend on how well that symbolism translates into practical outcomes. But one thing is certain. The country's story is no longer just about what it has survived. It is now about what it dares to build. Can Ibrahim Traoré's city truly transform Burkina Faso's image? Will this ambitious vision withstand security and economic pressures? Let us know in the comment section. Is this the beginning of a new model for African cities? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.